All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Global Reality right here on the Global Reality Radio Network. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. This is the Friday, April 28th, 2017 edition of the broadcast. And we thank you very much here for being with us for another show. I got an email yesterday. It said, "Hi, Josh. I was wondering when you might do another video show broadcast. You haven't done one in a while, and I'd be willing to donate $100 to your operating costs if you do. All I ask is that other listeners out there pledge to do the same whenever you do upload one again. Thanks for all your hard work, Gina." Well, here you go, Gina. Look at that. We're here live on the video camera. So here you go. No, I don't do these as often lately. Kind of talked about that the other night. My computer and stuff is so tied up with filmmaking, working on the films, and it requires so much effort and resources and time and what to do these video things. I don't get to do them often enough, but we will do more. And hey, here you go. Here's one asking, you shall receive. But now you gotta hold up your end. Gotta contribute to our operating costs. So that's awesome. So there you go. So thank you, Gina. And again, Gina said all she asks is that other listeners out there pledge to contribute as well, like she did once this video's up. So here you go. And boy, I'd already planned to do this even before I had what I have to talk about with you here on the show tonight. So yeah, this is a good one. I don't know. We'll see. My thing is I'm glad there are some people out there that appreciate it. But I don't necessarily like being on camera or anything. I'm not a performance artist. Now, I guess it's not true. I mean, I'm a musician as well. So I've played tons of shows and been on stages and played in front of people my whole life. So, but as far as this goes, no, it's not a performance, and I necessarily don't like being on camera. But if that's what people want to, I'll try to accommodate that when I can. So this is our fundraising time of the month, and you can go back and listen to all the stuff that I talked about yesterday's show for our fundraising efforts. I'm not going to repeat that in this one, but again, we just have to reach our 100% of our operating cost goal no later than 3 p.m. on Monday. So please hit the comment section and the read more section. You can find the links to the place where you can donate, because it's not up on my website. The banner for the month, it tells you how much our goal is and how much we've raised. If you're watching this, look in the comment section, look in the read more section. I'll have links to it there, and you can be able to find it. Again, that's PayPal only, so if you want to use a credit card or a debit card or something like that, or a prepaid card, go hit the donate button at my website. Everybody that contributes $100 is going to get their name or a name of their choice in the special thanks of Spellcasters 2, and then 3 downloads from the download shop of your choice. And if you do contribute, make sure you email me with your selections, if you do qualify for one of the contributions. And also, I'll put the call out again once we get closer to the end of Spellcasters 2 being ready and I start doing the credits. I'll put the call out again here on the show and ask for people that contributed, what names they want or whatever. Then you can email me that then. But yeah, again, if you contribute and you want to get your 3 free downloads, you got to email me and let me know which ones you want. Sometimes people contribute when I put these offers out, but then I never hear from them. And oftentimes, if you contribute, especially through the GoFunding banner thing, it doesn't give me access to your email address, so I have no way of sending anything to you. So you got to email me and let me know what 3 selections you want there for your free downloads. So yeah, that's awesome. But again, we need everybody to contribute and everybody to help us reach our goal here, so we can cover our operating costs for the month and keep on keeping on. All right, I've got some news here. I don't know how far I'm going to get into it before because I've got something big I want to unleash in the show. If you're tuning into this broadcast, you've got something. There's something big coming. I'm going to unleash here. later on in the show. I don't want to talk about, well, he released, the other, some of the more recent shows I was talking about, all of this new information and all this new research and whatnot that I've brought out now here with the Spellcasters. Volume 1, now 1.5, which is now out as well in the download shop. That's a download shop exclusive. Will not be available any other place except in the download shop. You can go and get that now. If you haven't seen Volume 1, you can get yourself a download of that too. If you're still waiting on a disc to arrive and you haven't seen Volume 1 and you want to download a Volume 1 while you wait for the disc to be manufactured and sent out, which we're still waiting on. Again, I apologize for that, but it's been out of my hands for a long time, but we're still working on that. But if you want a free download of Volume 1 while you wait, if you've purchased a DVD or a Blu-ray, all you got to do is email me, globalrealityshow@gmail.com, and I would happily send you a download while you wait for the disc to be manufactured. But I was thinking about all this information, and as I mentioned in one of the more recent shows, I was talking about how, this information absolutely forces a re-examination, I think, of everything that we think that we know or have known about the whole conspiracy research genre and all the elements of the information and all the talking points and things within it. And again, this is not an act or performance art for me. I'm not Alex Jones, so these are the things that I ponder, the things that I am thinking about as I'm doing my research and when I'm not on air. So last night after I was on air, I started thinking about that, and I was thinking about, man, we have to re-examine all the stuff that we think we know, especially when you look at the stuff that specifically that Alex Jones has pushed. Have we been told the whole truth about that stuff? Is there connections to this stuff? Some of these other different talking points and things, connected to Scientology and the rest of it. I think it warrants further investigation. So that's what I did, and I'll tell you more about that here in just a bit. TheGlobalReality.com is my website. Again, that's where you go to find all the films, and you can use the donate button there to contribute if you want to contribute that way. So it appears that, not appears, it's absolute fact. Alex Jones loses primary custody of his children. Conspiracy theorists had near exclusive care since a bitter 2015 divorce. Jury in Austin late Thursday awarded joint custody of his children to his ex-wife, removing Jones from primary custody. Jones received visitation rights to see the children, ages 9, 12, and 14, but their primary residence will be with their mother, Kelly Jones. Jones, whose bombast on InfoWars series attracts a legion of believers and critics who call him a crackpot, showed no emotion after the verdict. Well, like I told you, like I said, I talked about this a few shows ago. And I talked about how it could go either way. I was rooting for him. I actually wanted him to win because I wanted that, But either way, the damage is done. This is why he wanted this court stuff kept a secret. Because either way, stuff was going to come out. But, I talked about it several shows ago. What does it mean if he wins? What does it mean if he loses? But as I also talked about a few shows ago, this guy never gave the impression throughout this entire trial that he really wanted to win, did he? At every turn he was trying to throw the verdict one way or the other, and then talking about that stuff out of court and stuff. Think about it. He got divorced from his one wife. He already had another, the mistress, I guess it was the mistress he was cheating with. He already cheated on her with another woman. Apparently she knows about that. He married her and got her pregnant, the one that's supposedly or was it an escort? And guess what? She's Jewish too. I never really harped on that when Alex was married to Kelly Jones and everybody else on the internet was going off about she was being a Jew or whatever. And I was, because I was always just like, yeah, well, maybe that means something. Maybe it doesn't. It doesn't always mean something in every case. Not every single goddamn fucking person that's Jewish is connected to the fucking conspiracy. Come on. But when you go from one Jew broad to another in a short period of time, and then the next chick that you go to just happens to be Jewish too, and you knock her up too. I mean, come on. That's beyond coincidental or even pre-planning. That's just a straight up fetish. That's what that is. I think Jones has a Jew fetish. That's what it is. Hey, I've seen some hot Jew girls too. I mean, I won't lie to you. I've seen some hot ones too. As long as they don't have that fucking Sarah Jessica Parker fucking beak and the fucking horse teeth. I mean, they can be. Some of them are hot. So I get where he's come from. But I mean, no, this is beyond coincidental or anything else at this point. Because it really, that's like finding a needle in a haystack. You got to be out there actively searching. I mean, that's what it really seems like. That does, like he's out there actively. You just happen to find the next woman you find and marry and knock up happens to be Jewish too. So again, I think I withheld a little bit during all the years while he was married to her. Now, no, not so much. Clearly, this is all a part of the thing. But he, think about it. He's freshly remarried, got another kid on the way. He didn't want all those kids. 3 kids and a baby and a new wife underfoot. Come on. No, he's happy just to fucking pay that money, keep it quiet. See, what we're not hearing are any of the, non-disclosure agreements or other things that were signed. I mean, who knows? Who knows what went on behind the scenes? But I think that, interestingly, I mean, what as far as what this does for Alex Jones or against him, I mean, the thing about it is, he's shown throughout this trial that his persona is more important to him than, obviously the custody of his children. I mean, I'm saying he doesn't care about his children. Obviously, he cares about his children, but they're going to be taken care of. He's, I don't think this really affects them a great deal because, I mean, I'm not defending Kelly Jones either. I mean, dude, Jesus Christ. If she was married to that dude for that long and didn't get out, what does that say about her? I mean, I get the indication she's just as batshit crazy as he is. I mean, believe me, not opposites, but like attracts like, you know what I mean? Sometimes if you're a crazy motherfucker, that's exactly what you attract. Believe me, I've attracted my share of fucking crazy ones in my day. Believe me. So no, I don't think this is one of those. Oftentimes in these kind of cases, you might have a mother who is legitimately, a good person, is legitimately wants to look out for her kids, and a dad who's just a fucking total off the rails fucking doucheboat. But it's not always the case. Sometimes the dad is the one that's upstanding, and the mom is the one that's the fucking doucheboat, fucking, loser, crackhead, whatever. But as I talked about on the previous shows, I think that, and we're already starting to see this, as I talked about yesterday. This always happens anytime you have, and you're starting to see the right-wing media now take a retreat because Trump's in office. Their guys got blamed. I mean, people know that any right-wing sources now are going to be doing nothing for the most part, except backing up the current president and the current establishment. But I also, if you go back and watch the election night coverage, I also made the prediction right around the elections last year that eventually, and I still stand by this, and I think we've already started to see some of it. Because I talked about that, because Jones he's mainstream media now. He is just as mainstream media as Fox News or any of these other things. He's not alternative media. He's not underground media. He is not a trusted source for information, and should not ever be considered a trusted source for information. And he's just as mainstream as the rest of them. But I said, he wants to keep the thing going. So I predicted then, even then around the time of the election, that eventually you'll see Jones turn on Trump. Because all these guys do. Because it's just like the WWF, man. WWE, whatever it is now. Just like wrestling. And those Council for National Policy and those CIA vetted meetings and stuff, those are the places where they go in and give the high fives and everybody's under one roof. basically organizing the marching orders. But in the public, they sometimes do this, even though that's why you have different sections of the Republican Party, different types of conservatives. And they'll go at odds with each other and act like they're against each other, but really they're not. But I think you'll see that. I think eventually you'll see that Jones will try to separate himself from Trump and from the establishment, because he sold us and sold the American people on, Trump is he's the real deal and he's against those. No, and all of us out here who really know have always known from the beginning he's just as much a businessman and a shyster and somebody who's there for personal gain as much as any politician. I mean, you don't get into politics unless that's your game. And for somebody to sit there straight face on a radio show and try to lie to you and tell you, even though you're smart enough to have had years of looking at this for yourself, to figure out that no single person gets into politics for any other reason other than personal gain. And watch out before it's over with. You laugh at this. I think Jones will make a run at it. I think that may be a part of what the next plan is for Jones. They may phase him out of this operation and start phasing him into other stuff. We'll see. But it's just hilarious that it's taken this and this event and this trial or whatever to wake a lot of people up to Alex Jones. Like a lot of people, I've seen a lot of stuff all over Facebook. People just now having the aha moment, people just now figuring it out, and it's like, really, this is what it took. But I started and to get on to the point about what I was thinking about last night. All those things, Bohemian Grove, 9/11, JFK, stuff like I show in the Spellcasters, especially with JFK and the involvement with Scientology, and then how that became the epicenter. Think about it. There were conspiracies and there was stuff going on. There were things that were being manipulated and we were being lied to about well before the Kennedy assassination. But why is it that the Kennedy assassination became the ground zero, birthing ground of all things concerning conspiracy theories? It's absolutely because of the Church of Scientology and L. Ron Hubbard's involvement in the assassination of Kennedy. Watch Spellcasters. I don't want to give it all away, but watch Spellcasters Volume 1 to see me talk more about that. And then all the subsequent conspiracy stuff after that. And I'm working on this Spellcasters 2 now, which is going to deal more with music. And several years ago, the singer Beck, no one for a long time even knew that he was a Scientologist. He came out as a Scientologist, and then shortly after coming out as a Scientologist, he came out with a song called Chemtrails. No coincidence there. And of course, all the other established stuff we already have of all these conspiracy books, None Dare Call It a Conspiracy, Rule by Secrecy, all the Jim Marrs of all being on the Dave Miscavige Scientology approved reading list. Which, by the way, Scientologists are only permitted to read certain books. You're only permitted to read what's on the approved reading list. You're not allowed to read stuff. And so all the stuff that happens to be on their approved reading list is all this conspiracy material by these, approved so-called truthers, Jim Marrs and the rest. So after thinking about that Beck thing, and I was talking about yesterday with Jones and his SAG-AFTRA card, and he's a card-carrying fucking actor. If you have a Screen Actors Guild card that you pay thousands of dollars for, and you have it in your wallet, you're an actor. Period. End of story. It doesn't matter what your defense says in the court or doesn't say, or however else you want to spin it. If a card-carrying member of SAG is an actor, and it blows my mind that somebody who's only made 2 appearances in movies where he's basically just being himself, how that qualifies as being an actor. There had to be more to it than that. And of course, Beck is married to Marissa Ribisi, Marissa Ribisi was the I love them redheads, man. Yes, I do. Party at the Moon Tower, man. Everybody's gonna be there. You ought to go. In Days of Confused, I love them redheads, man. Y'all get ditched two geeks in the car with, get in the car with us, but that's all right. We'll worry about that later. I'll see you there. She's married to Beck, and her brother is Giovanni Ribisi, and they are all Scientologists, all the way across the board. It's interesting because in his Richard Linklater's first movie was Dazed and Confused, and who do you have in it? Marissa Ribisi, who's now married to Beck. Her brother Giovanni Ribisi is also a Scientologist, and then because I always try to connect Richard Linklater to Scientology because he always has Scientologists and whatnot in his movie, but then once I found out about the free zone, I said, well, he's obviously probably a free zoner. And then later he ends up having, in his later movies, Alex Jones in there. So you see all these connections back to these, this conspiracy stuff. So I was thinking last night, I was thinking about all the stuff I've heard Jones talk about through the years, like I was talking about on the show last night, just remembering back little things that he said that sort of stuck in my head, and I remembered them and didn't really know why they were important at the time, but I remembered them, and recalling them now through the lens of looking at the Scientology information makes all this stuff make so much more sense. And one of the things I thought about when I was thinking about all these different conspiracies and looking at them through a different lens, we talked a month or so ago, we had that Saturday show I did, where I talked about the email that I got concerning Jerry E. Smith and what was that other guy's name? Being Scientologist, he's the guy that wrote the Angels Don't Play This Harp book, and Jim Keith being a Scientologist too. He's somebody who Michael Starr and other people always praised. That was a huge revelation for me. That admission and that interview where they talked openly about being Scientology, and it was like, well, there's the harp conspiracy connected back to Scientologists. Or do you have the JFK thing? I started seeing that and saying, wow, man, it seems like almost every one of these little component issues, no matter what it might be, whether it's HARP, chemtrails, 9/11, JFK, it's starting to look like the big experts, the people who've been brought out and presented to us as the big experts on these subjects, have all been connected back to Scientology. I mean, as we talked about, William Bramley, Gods of Eden, who I interviewed and read his book. He was one of these. He started a squirrel group, which is we know now that, I always knew that was the Scientology term for it. What we know now that we didn't know is squirrel groups are actually free zone groups. That's what they are. So that's what William Bramley, who wrote Gods of Eden, that's what he did. He joined Scientology and then went and used the information, went and started his own group separate from it. And his real name's not even William Bramley. It's Tor Dahlin, I believe, is his real name. And so it just, it got me, golly. It just seems like almost every single individual little thing, that you can think about in terms of Scientology, the figureheads who brought those out are either connected to Scientology or are in fact are Scientologists. So I was, last night again, I was just thinking, I was brainstorming, I was thinking, God, we gotta filter everything through this new lens now. And one of the things that popped in my head that I hadn't thought about in a long time, one of the topics I hadn't thought about in a long time that I remember Jones talked about for a long, long time, many, many times, because he always tied it into his eugenics angle and the rest of it. And it's also something that, kind of through my own homework and research, no one's ever really seemed to come up with a lot of answers on the Georgia Guidestones. And most of what has been out there has been speculation, and I don't really believe based in any real actual fact. But it's something that conspiracy theorists, especially Jones and others, have used for many years to reinforce their claims, and it is fascinating. So I said, well, let me do some digging. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. That brings us to the big reveal. Ladies and gentlemen, first off, I got to tell you, I'm on fire. I mean, I'm just on fucking fire right now. First with the stuff that's in Spellcasters 1.5, now this. Again, as I've talked about, man, constantly I get that reaffirmation that I'm on the right path because I just accidentally continue to find these big revelations. And this is a big one. It's one of those, gotta, take a breath for a minute, figure out where to start, because this is a lot. So I started thinking about the Georgia Guidestones and thinking, you know what? It was one of those things, I've talked about this before. There has been times throughout my whole life where I've just intuited that something was true, just known it, like an instinct. No facts to back it up, nothing, just an instinct. Like it comes to you, it's in your head, and it's just like, oh my God, and you know it's true. And then you could start finding the details. So that's how the Rockwall thing was for me. When I first read about the Rockwall, coincidentally, we're in Jim Marr's book, Rule by Secrecy in 2004. Maybe we'll find out all the mysteries that we seek, and maybe we'll find out about this, that, and the other, and the ancient Rockwall in Rockwall, Texas. And as soon as I read that fucking sentence, all these experiences I had, I mean, me and my friend, when we were 16 years old, when we first got our license, we chased a UFO from Greenville, Texas, all the way to Rockwall, Texas. And right when it got to Rockwall, where the bridge, where the wall is, it zigged like this across and then went and shot out through the fucking atmosphere. And, me and the same friend a few years later had a missing time incident near the Rockwall. And several of our other friends that we went to high school with had missing time incidences on that same thing. UFO sightings, everything out there for years. Weird. We had another incident that happened near Rockwall at the lake one time where me and my friend we still don't know what this was. It was some kind of it was an entity, essentially. We were out there late at night. We were young. We were like 20 years old and, bored, wanting to go hang out late at night, hang out by the lake. And we just went to go hang out by the lake this one night. And there was we saw these crosses where somebody had died, I guess, because you're not supposed to swim in Lake Ray Hubbard, which is the lake that covers up the rock wall, or part of it. It doesn't cover up all of it, but there are other things that don't even pertain to the rock wall, these rock dome things that they cracked that are buried under the lake. Anyway, somebody had died there by this spot we were at. They had wooden crosses up and stuff. And we were kind of sitting there looking at this, and as we were sitting there looking at this, it was some kind of spiritual energy, and it was not positive. It was there was some kind of evil force that, like, it hit me and my friend with such fucking force that it just caused us to both start crying instantaneously, like little girls. It scared the bejesus out of us. I mean, we were like sitting in a fucking Waffle House at like 4 a.m, holding our heads like, what in the fuck was that? All these experiences. As soon as I read those words about the rock wall, I knew instantaneously, even though I had no facts to back it up yet, didn't even know about the wall, hadn't seen it, had no research. I just knew instantaneously by instinct that was the explanation to all those things I'd experienced all those years. And boy, was I ever right. I've told the story about 9/11 many times. Same thing on 9/11. I mean, as soon as it happened, I knew what it was. I was like, this is another JFK. This is a plot. This is not what they're telling it is. I knew it instantaneously. No facts to back it up yet. Nothing. Just knew it. Same thing with this. There's just certain things, and I'm finding that more and more with this. So I was doing some research, and I saw mention about some claim that somebody made that the Georgia Guidestones had something to do with Scientology. Like I said, after I got off the show last night, I was sitting here, just thinking about that thought, filtering everything through that having to filter everything through that lens again, kind of, excuse me, kind of like you do when you're first waking up to this stuff, well, if this is true, what about this? And you're looking, oh my God, that connects too. So when I had that sort of, thought about the Georgia Guidestones, I bet that's connected to Scientology. Start looking, boom. So then I was like, okay, well, I got to figure out, if I can substantiate this. I got to figure out if there's something to this. Because I had that gut feeling again, that, that suspicious feeling that it is indeed connected to them. And then found, just a little scant little mention that it might be somewhere on the internet. Who knows if it's true or not. But that's all I needed. Then the research starts. That's how much of this starts for me, Sometimes it starts with a little hunch like that. I bet this, and then find one little thread, and that's all I need. I'm off to the races after that. So I had found this claim that not only is Scientology connected to the Georgia Guidestones, they were commissioned and placed there lock, stock, and barrel by L. Ron Hubbard himself. Now, I know that sounds unbelievable. It's unbelievable to think about. So, let's start off with the person who made this claim. Because I'm sure the first thing that people who don't want to believe this information are going to say is, well, okay, where's the proof, number one, and the person who's making this statement, what about their credibility? The person who made this name is a guy by the name of Steve Fishman. Now, this is what blew me away. This is where the real information. Okay, so let's establish first off that this guy is a credible source of information, and this is how we do that. Okay, because this blew me away. I can't believe I didn't come across this guy already in my research. Steve Fishman is the guy. I'd heard about this case, but I didn't know about the specifics. Steve Fishman is the guy who single-handedly is responsible for us getting, back in the 90s, all the information on Xenu and the Wall of Fire and the upper OT levels of Scientology, all that information which the church had hidden and no one outside people who had gone through the levels had known about. It's one of those things kind of like I talked about last night with my information. And how I kind of carefully guard some of the newer stuff that I find, because once you put it out there, and I don't reveal some of the stuff till I put the films out. Because once you put something out there, people can make 1,000 crappy YouTube videos before I can get a movie done on it, and then they never quote back the source. And I think this is one of those examples. I don't think this guy, Steve Fishman, gets the credit that he deserves. But I'm going to read some stuff here for you. This is unbelievable. So he was basically an upper-level Scientologist that was pulling scams for Scientology, and he got caught. And when he got caught, they tried to fucking hang him out to dry, right? Like they do to, plausible deniability, just like the CIA does. You get caught doing something, by somebody else, even though you're working for the CIA, they'll disavow, any acknowledge of you're working with them to protect themselves. Plausible deniability. That's what plausible deniability is. The origins of Steve Fishman's dispute with the Church of Scientology lay in a fraud scheme that he conducted from 1983 to 1988. Fishman joined dozens of class action lawsuits by presenting stock purchase confirmations that he had stolen from his employer and forged. In this manner, he made approximately $1 million, as much as 30% of which he spent on Scientology materials and services. So think about that. So they get him into doing these scams and schemes and ripping all this money, $1 million off, and then just get him to, it's like money laundering. That's exactly how they do it. They get him to pull these schemes off. They show him, how to do it and tell him how to do it and instruct him how to do it. He does it, and then what does he do? He siphons off 30% of that $1 million, $300,000 into Scientology auditing stuff. And then if he gets caught, what do? Oh, we don't know this guy. He was operating on his own. Fishman was arrested in July 1988 and charged with several counts of fraud. The FBI also investigated the possibility of church involvement in the scheme. Fishman's attorney, Mark Nurek, had planned to use an insanity defense, offering false memory syndrome theorist Richard Offshee and psychologist Margaret Singer as expert witnesses. Fishman sat for a 7-part videotaped interview with Offshee and Nurek. In the interview, he discussed in detail various aspects of Scientology doctrine, his own Scientology involvement, and the church's response to his arrest. Fishman claimed that the church staff had ordered him to murder psychologist Huey Gertz, who had knowledge of his Scientology involvement, and then for Fishman to commit suicide. So that's crazy. So he goes and testifies that not only was, they were they involved, they wanted him to murder this psychologist and then commit suicide himself. And I'll think about that. You know how many people have probably, this guy didn't go through with it, but think about how many people we don't know about that probably did go through with something like that. At the same time, according to Fishman, he participated in a conspiracy with church staff to deflect accusations of church involvement by submitting fake documents and making false statements to his defense team. For these acts, he was further charged with obstruction of justice. The court ultimately blocked Nurek's defense strategy by rejecting both expert witnesses based on the testimony of opposing expert Dick Anthony. Fishman pleaded guilty to 1 count of mail fraud and 1 count of obstruction, and the court sentenced him on July 20th, 1990 to 5 years imprisonment in the Butner Federal Correction Institution. Fishman later claimed that the church hired Scientologist inmate Luis Martinez to kill him in prison. He was paroled in mid-1993. According to Anthony, who had opposed Offshee and Singer, Fishman's criminal case was one of several in which they had attempted to introduce their ideas of coercive persuasion by religious groups. In 1991, while Fishman was still incarcerated, Time magazine published a highly critical cover story on Scientology by Richard Behar. The story mentioned Fishman's fraud conviction and the alleged plot to eliminate him and Gertz. The church responded by filing libel lawsuits against Time Warner, Behar, and Fishman and Gertz jointly. In support of his contention that he had been brainwashed in order to murder Gertz, Fishman attached a series of documents to a motion to reconsider venue. This filing has since become known as the Fishman Affidavit. See, I'd heard about that. It included purported Scientology documents describing obstructionist tactics used in the event of an arrest. So, again, how to obstruct justice, how to do that. If you're caught and arrested with doing a crime that Scientology sanctioned, and of course that's what he did. He was served with obstruction of justice. Did 3 years on it. It included purported Scientology documents describing obstructionist tactics to use in the event of an arrest, as well as versions of operating Thetan levels 1 through 7 and purported excerpts of OT level 8. Nobody even knew there was an 8 at that time. Fishman's filing placed the advanced materials on record at the district court, available for viewing by the general public. Despite an unsuccessful church motion to seal the court records and efforts to keep the court files continuously checked out, former Scientologist Arnetta Lerma obtained the affidavit and posted it on the internet, after which it spread uncontrollably. In the process of suing Lerma for copyright infringement, the church confirmed that the copies of levels 1 through 7 were accurate. A federal judge court summarily dismissed the church's claims against Time Warner and Behar, finding that they had not acted with actual malice insofar as the church was concerned. The church dropped its claims against Fishman and Gertz, and Gertz's legal team served subpoenas upon such Scientologist celebrities as Kelly Preston, Juliette Lewis, and Isaac Hayes. The court record in the Fishman case remains open to the public. So think about that. This is the guy that blew the whole thing open. They tried to hang him out to dry. They tried to act like he was, so, oh no, he's lying. He's making this up. We didn't have anything to do with this. So he hung them out to dry and actually published on the internet the document, all the stuff about fair game, the obstructionist tactics, and all the stuff all the way through level 7 and some of the level OT8 stuff. Okay. So this guy, even though a lot of people didn't believe him, they didn't believe him at first, did they? He got caught doing a crime. He said, look, this is not all me. I didn't just come up with this on my own. Look at where the money went. They tried to fuck him. They tried to hang him out to dry. And he said, well, boom, here's all the secret stuff. Look, here it is. Here's the proof. So when I had heard that this guy had made the claim about the connection to L. Ron Hubbard, Scientology, and the Georgia Guidestones, upon doing more research into him and seeing, okay, this guy's, he's legit. We've established that. So, again, nobody had ever, even the church, that's so crazy. Even the church couldn't deny. They had to admit, yeah, that's the real. No one knew about the Xenu stuff, any of that. We're talking about before. This is what blew the door open for South Park to later do their Scientology episode where they had all the Xenu stuff and space alien stuff animated and drawn out with the stuff on the screen that said this is what Scientologists actually believe. That's the reason why none of that stuff appeared before that. South Park, as great as they are, they weren't being groundbreakers by doing that. They had just done that because that information had just become available shortly before they did it. So I had found there's a book written by this gentleman, Stephen Fishman, and the name of his book is Lonesome Squirrel. Because again, that's what the people they call it take the information off and start fucking free zone groups. And in here in chapter 6, he's discussing some of the conversations, and the whole book is all about his experience and the things he experienced while he was in Scientology. And I haven't read the whole book because I just found out about it last night. I'm not going to have time to read it, but I did find the piece of information I was looking for. And I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, I don't sensationalize stuff. I don't blow stuff up out of proportion. But this is bigger than I even expected. I mean, what I'm about to read you, ladies and gentlemen, proves beyond any shadow of a doubt what I've been presenting in my work here on the show, in the film, The Spellcasters 1.5, and now in Volume 2 I'm working on. So this gentleman, Steve Fishman, we were just discussing, is relaying some information here in Chapter 6 of his book about a New Year's event, New Year's Scientology event, in which he was talking to one of the upper echelon guys, Pat Broker, I guess is this person's name. And, God, this is unbelievable. This also proves another, I'd had this hunch. See, I'd heard that L. Ron Hubbard was very anti-Britain, UK against the British government, very anti-British government. And I'd heard that a lot of the stuff about like the Rothschild stuff and a lot of that conspiracy stuff getting nailed down had really traced back and had been with him because it was kind of an axe he had to grind. So if you watch Spellcasters 1.5, there's a clip that was one of only 2 interviews ever known to exist with L. Ron Hubbard, where he's talking about, it's in black and white, it's in Spellcasters 1.5, where he's talking about the British government, how they don't like him, this stuff. And he also mentions in there that they were going on expeditions to look for ancient civilizations and lost civilizations in the Middle East, in Iraq. And in those places. See what I'm saying? Hubbard was going and looking for the same exact stuff that Hitler was. He was looking for these evidences of lost civilizations and whatnot, because as we've established, all of the connection between the Anunnaki stuff and Sitchin, now that Hubbard believed that tied in with Scientology, and he was going on his own expeditions. But listen to this. This is just unbelievable. This is, again, from Steve Fishman's book. He says, the New Year's event was so memorable for me. Pat Broker, the executive director of the Commodore Messenger organization, that's a Scientology organization, spoke about what the second 30 years in Scientology would be like. Now, let's stop right there. Dynamics was written 47, published 52. So started Scientology early 50s. This meeting, this conversation that I'm reading here from his book, took place in the 80s. So the next 30 years of Scientology would be the 90s, the 2000s, and now. What else is that? That's the era of Alex Jones, the rise of the conspiracy culture, reaching its biggest point ever, right? Okay. Now listen to this. No longer would we have to be persecuted by suppressive governments, because Scientology would be the government. Now think about that. That's their plan over the next 30 years, starting in the 80s. Now think about that in terms of everything I've talked about with Donald Trump and all these people, like the Duggar family, like I talk about Spellcasters 1.5. That alone was a huge revelation. Just reading that sentence, I'm not near done, though. No longer would we have to be persecuted by suppressive governments, because Scientology would be the government. This is talking about the plan for 30 years, for the 90s, the 2000s, and now. Somewhere in the corner of a remote, isolated section of the planet would be the Museum of Psychiatry and Barbaric Mental Health Antiquities, which will stand as a painful reminder that the brutality of man's darkest hour shall never be permitted to be repeated again. Never shall we Scientologists rest, Pat Broker vowed, until the very last asylum and the very last prison becomes the very next auditing room. So I love that. This thing, again, that's what I've always talked about, even before I knew all this stuff about Scientology and Jones, is, any of these people that talk about how they want to overthrow the government and the rest of this, you always got to be leery of that, because one of the things you never hear out of these people's mouths is what they want to replace it with. Because 99.9% of the time, anytime there is an overthrow, what that government is replaced with 99.9% of the time is worse than what was there before. And that's always been my concern with these CMP types, Christian Dominionists, all these people. But that's what they want to do. They want to turn every prison and every psychiatry office into an auditing office. Again, this is beyond just the planet, folks. These people literally want to take over the galaxy. Pat mesmerized the audience, and the standing ovation was the longest on record, a full 17 minutes. Privately, after the ceremonies, Wally Hooker gave me an oral lesson on my financial rescue hat. That's financial rescue. That's a lot of stuff that he uses. Scientology has their own language and stuff, and their own terminologies for things. But listen to this. Back in 1967, he explained, L. Ron Hubbard isolated those suppressive industrialists and financiers who, by their evil acts, were dramatizing a catastrophe that had occurred in this sector of the universe some 75 million years ago. Those individuals who were intimately connected with most of the Fortune 500 companies either owned, controlled, or did business with the Rockefeller Foundation, the Bank of England, the Trilateralist Commission, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Bilderberg Trust, and of course, the World Federation of Mental Health and its token subsidiary, the American Psychiatric Association. How many fucking people even knew about those things back in 1967? Not a lot. Certainly no. Like I've talked about, nobody even knew about the Bilderberg Group in the late 90s. You were crazy to talk about it. But he's connecting. Again, let me read that for you again. Ron isolated those suppressive industrialists and financiers who by their evil acts were dramatizing a catastrophe that had occurred in this section of the universe some 75 million years ago. L. Ron is associating, again, this is the key, folks. This is the key. L. Ron is associating the Rockefeller. Think about that. Think about that laundry list I just went down. That's the fucking laundry list of the goddamn whole fucking thing that conspiracy research is built on. Those groups. And he's relating them to the whole Xenu dead alien soul thing that happened in this sector of the universe 75 million years ago, and that the Rockefellers and the Bank of England and the Trilateral Commission and the Council on Foreign Relations and the Bilderberg Trust and the World Federation of Mental Health and the American Psychiatric Association, all the people involved in every one of those groups, every single person is reincarnated, and they're here now in this life, in this time, because they're here to do evil that Xenu didn't finish back then, because, of course, we all reincarnate and we're all just, constantly reincarnating back here on Earth again. I didn't even count on this, folks. This is beyond, I don't even know what to say. This is beyond what I expected. I mean, I've already shown you the evidence, folks, in spades, that these people have been behind the conspiracy movement, but this is beyond. This is in 1967. L. Ron Hubbard is talking about how these. So the whole basis, folks, for all the conspiracy stuff. Again, filtering it through that new lens. Now, when you listen to Alex Jones talk about all these things, George Soros, whoever it may be, these guys believe that the people who are their enemies, the people that work in the psychiatric parts of the big bankers, Rothschilds, whoever, are the evil reincarnations of Xenu. This is what they believe. This is why they take this conspiracy stuff so seriously, folks. I knew. See, this is the key. I had never been able to find it, but it was again another one of those hunches. But I'm not done. Give me a minute. We still haven't gotten down to the Guthrie Guidestones yet. We're not done. I knew that there was something to do. I just had not been able to figure it out. This is it. I have not been able to figure out what has been the obsession, because it's not only that the Scientologists and CIA approved figureheads have become the only people that have been able to rise to the top throughout the decades in the whole conspiracy genre, but it's the fact that it seems so ensconced within the belief system of Scientology itself, inseparable. Meaning that whatever the implications and the real importance of this type of conspiracy research are, it goes right to the heart of Scientology itself. But I've never been able to prove that. Well, that proves to be any shadow of a doubt. I'm not done. While Ron was on his naval vessel, the Royal Scotsman, which was later called the Apollo, he cognited that recovering funds from corporations with these affiliated with these suppressive persons and groups would be an effective way to handle all of their out ethics, corporate theft, and fraud, and return a portion of this to the third dynamic in order to create a stable cause point from which all this evil or entheia could be turned around. Financial rescue was Ron's way of making things right. Peter, it turned out, had been trained in financial rescue when he did his internship at the New York Org in 1974 or 1975. What was the catastrophe that occurred 75 million years ago? I asked Wally. I thought the history of the Thetan began 76 trillion years ago. Wally started to laugh. You are confusing the time when we were trapped in human bodies with the date we were packaged and shipped to Earth as prisoners. 76 trillion years ago, we were tricked into occupying physical universe bodies, and we have been forced into accepting the false cycle of life and death of the body ever since. when in actual fact, none of it is real. A Thetan cannot die. How can a spirit die? He just has amnesia, going from body to body, life after life, failing to remember anything. Wow, I exclaimed. Now, the other date, 75 million years ago, was when the suppressive Emperor Xenu sent in his armies and mercenaries to gather up unwanted segments from his populations, and he subsequently freeze-dried us by injecting a chemical solution of alcohol glycol into our lungs and shipped us to Earth on spaceships that look like commercial airline DC-9s. Maybe that's why I have such a fear of flying, I said. Possibly. Earth had a different name back then. It was called Tegiak. Tegiak? I asked. What does it mean? Oh, it means jail. In what language? I wondered curiously. Markabian, of course. Don't you know anything about the history of Theta? The Markab Confederacy was the planet in between Mars and Jupiter, which exploded 6 years after Xenu did this to us. And now it's known as the asteroid belt. It's completely devoid of life. What happened to the freeze-dried people there? I queried. We're all here. That's the WOG society we live in. You don't think they became that crazy for nothing, do you? I suppose not, I said. Anyway, once Xenu transported all the Thetans over here, he blew them up with explosive hydrogen bombs, which were suspended over some of Earth's most active volcanoes. It was a real noisy mess. How did we live through that? Well, it didn't end there. After the volcanoes exploded, the Thetans were captured by electronic force screens known as theta traps, which pulled them down toward Earth through several electromagnetic fields. And then the Emperor Xenu had the helpless beings packaged electronically at 2 automation plants into clusters, which were actually several thousand Thetans stuck together as one. Where did all this happen? Where were these packaging centers located? Everybody knows that, he scoffed. It's all part of Scientology history. One was in Pala, Hawaii, near the Mauna Loa volcano, and the other was in Las Palmas in the Canary Islands. Ron visited Las Palmas in 1967. It was a gruesome sight even after so many millions of years. The place was run back then by the personal psychiatrists of Emperor Xenu, who had conducted cruel experiments such as dissecting bodies right down to the skeleton and then photographing these sequences so that they would be implanted into the permanent memory or time tracks of the trapped Thetans in order that the ferocity of recalling any of these incidents at any subsequent time would kill them dead. It sounds horrible, but how could just remembering an unpleasant incident kill you? Well, if you started to freewheel or were unable to turn the mental image pictures off, you'd become trapped in the images, and in not being able to eat or sleep, you would simply catch pneumonia and die from exhaustion. The same phenomenon occurs if you get stuck in a nightmare and can't wake up, because a nightmare is nothing more than an effort to locate oneself. Obviously, Xenu did not want his secret scam to be undone. This is, after all, a prison planet. And until Ron discovered it, no one had ever survived confronting this material before. No one, certainly, until Ron found this incident, which is known as the Wall of Fire. How did Ron survive it? Look, I can't tell you. That's confidential material. That's what you audit on OT3. I've told you too damn much already. Just tell me what happened to Emperor Xenu, I begged. Did he get punished for doing all this to us? Wally looked at me rather reluctantly, but since he had not finished his apricot nectar, he condescended to answer my question. Xenu was captured for a while after some of the people's loyal officers revolted. Ron was the valiant leader of the counter-rebellion, of course, in another life. That's what he's meaning. The loyal officers imprisoned Xenu on a mountaintop on the island of Madeira, and for a short period of time he was forced to stay inside a wire cage that had an external battery. But Emperor Xenu had his own renegades and mercenaries, and a planetary war ensued. For years, Earth was a radioactive dump and a complete desert that was known throughout the Galactic Confederations as the evil place. It's for this reason that no other spaceships ever come here, even to this day, except to drop off their criminals en route to saner planets. We couldn't have all been criminals, could we? What about Ron? You wouldn't even dare call him a criminal. No, certainly not, Wally complained with great annoyance, because I was not allowing him to end the conversation. Now listen to this. Ron came here some years before Xenu. Let me start that over. Ron came here some years before Xenu started dumping his undesirables here. Ron's landing party, this is in his previous incarnation. Ron's landing party touched down in what is now Elbert County, Georgia. In fact, last June, I went there with Ron to see the place. This is early 80s, folks, when this conversation is going on. I went there with Ron to see the place, and he decided to construct a monument commemorating the original landing site. He wants it completed by his next birthday, this March 13th. Can I go and see it? I questioned. It's not finished yet, Wally stated. All I can tell you about it is that it's one of Ron's personal projects that he's become involved with. He's not planning it as a dissemination program for Scientology. The name of it will be the Georgia Guidestones. And he's planning to turn it over to the state of Georgia when it's completed so that it can be preserved as a state landmark and never be torn down. Ron just wants to commemorate the first landing site on Earth. That's all. He's very sentimental and nostalgic when it comes to history, although few people know it. Where is this place? I asked. It's in the center of a farm on a hill on Route 77 between Elberton and Hartwell, Georgia, right in the middle of nowhere. Ron always liked to go to Stonehenge when he was in England, and it's going to look something like that, but more modern. Won't his name be on it as a sponsor or something? He doesn't want that. He doesn't want that at all. When we went there, he told everybody that he was a former concrete worker named Robert C. Christian, whose great-grandmother was from Georgia. It was a marvelous mock-up. Of course, he did tell Joe Findley, the man at the Elberton Granite Finishing Company who was building it, that he was a war hero in World War II, which is certainly true. There's only one thing that puzzles me, though. Why did he choose the name Robert C. Christian? Ha, 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 Willie laughed. You're pretty smart picking up on that without having done OT7 yet. Well, now that I asked, why did he? It was just Ron's way of getting back at Emperor Xenu for what he did to all of us. Ron has a very good sense of humor, as well as the capacity to use a little sarcasm whenever he has to make a point about something. I don't understand. What does Xenu have to do with the name Robert C. Christian? Xenu, like all the rest of us, picked up other bodies in his subsequent life cycles, and is far better known for one of his more recent identities than he is for Xenu. Why, I asked. Was he Hitler? Wally looked at me as if I had just arrived from another world and didn't know a fucking thing. He shook his head from side to side and gulped down his drink. No. Xenu wasn't Hitler, he answered. Xenu was Christ. I'm just going to let you let that sink in for just a minute. Holy fucking shit. That's all I can say. Think about that for a minute, folks. Let it sink in. Think about that in terms of everything I've already talked about and revealed to you in my films. I mean, oh my God. That explains just the stuff I was even talking about last night. You know how about when I was first making The Secret Rite, the very first one, 2009, and I came across that image of Phyllis Schlafly, standing in front of a Scientology cross, and, Beverly LaHaye and, all the rest of them funding all that stuff to do with Scientology, and they put that L. Ron Hubbard stuff in there instead of Christian. It just didn't make sense. Why are all these CMP types and these right-winger Christian types associating with L. Ron Hubbard and trying to get his teaching. My God, folks. Think about it. We've known that they've been operating on information we haven't had for years. They believe Xenu is Christ. Or one of his incarnations was Christ. This fucking explains, and Elron put the RC Christian thing there as a tribute to the whole Xenu thing. And the fucking Georgia Guidestones were the landing spot where the first landing took place of the aliens that came down, that Elron was a reincarnation. Oh, fucking A. Again, this is from the book of the guy that is responsible for entering into court documentation that the Scientologists could not get sealed, all the OT levels up to 8. This is just huge. This is massive. This may be one of the biggest revelations that I've ever come across as far as this information. Again, if you haven't seen Spellcasters 1 and 1.5, you need to see those films to really, truly grasp how unbelievable this is. I mean, I've seen it. Everybody, I've been getting all of your comments, listeners, your comments, your emails out there for months now, since I've been on to this, because you guys have started to figure this out. I mean, just last night I had comments from people saying, you're really on to something here. You've really cracked this. But this is just beyond. Again, this stuff goes to the heart of what they believe. They believe that stuff now, and the people that are alive now on this planet were also incarnated way back then, and he's connecting Rothschilds and Trilateral Commission and all this to being reincarnated evildoers of humans. I mean, God damn, folks. And it makes sense. I just, because Alex Jones really went off about the Georgia Guidestones so much, and I always felt like he was lying. I always felt like Alex Jones knew something about the fucking Georgia Guidestones that he was not saying. I don't know why. And all the research and all the stuff, it just felt like something that we should have already cracked by now. And here is this conversation that took place in the 1980s at a fucking Scientology thing in somebody's book that did it. Again, this is going to be one of those things now. It's going to be one of those things, but you heard it here first. I don't think anybody else has found this information, or I don't think anybody else is. It's going to happen now. It'll probably happen now. You watch. But just so everybody knows, we have a record. We have proof. You heard this shit here first, folks. Any of the questions, any of the things that we wondered about the Georgia Guidestones and stuff, now we can put it to rest. But the universe, whatever you want to call it, the creator, it always leads me to the info, folks. It always puts it in front of me. That's why I don't get frustrated. It's tough, man. This is the toughest thing I've ever done in my life. And it's tough not knowing every month if we're going to be able to continue or make the next film or whatever else or get our operating costs. But I've never given up. And this is why I've never given up, because when I'm on the right path of something, I start getting big time signs and signals. Just like I do if I'm on the wrong path or something, I get big time signs and signals. But I've never had as many happen to me as have happened since I've been involved in this research. And folks, as you can see, this is deeper than I ever imagined. And this proves beyond any shadow of a doubt that all my suspicions I've had and all the research that I've shown and proven up to this point about the connections to the entire conspiracy and so-called truth genre being completely created and controlled by the CIA and Scientology, folks, is absolutely beyond any shadow of a doubt the truth. As hard as it is to accept, it's hard for me to accept it, folks, but here it is. And God damn it, this is why we got to have your support. This is why we have to continue. I don't have a choice now. I'm well past the fucking point of no return. I can't turn back now. Again, it's just why I implore each and every one of you to just help us, donate, fund us, get us. We need some cash in here. We need a fucking war chest so we can start trying to get this stuff to reach more people. We've got the information. We've got to get the stuff out to more people, and it's all it takes is money. If we can get that, we can start promoting this stuff and buying ads at places and putting this stuff out there. I want to do it now. I mean, this is just, I'm just on fire. I feel like I fucking did when I started 10 years ago again, because there's no question now. If you had any doubts, and I understand, I mean, this is crazy shit. I can understand, but folks, there's no doubts now. I mean, I've made a fucking excellent case in these films so far, but this is just, I mean, this is the end. This proves it. Unbelievable. All right, folks, you know what to do. TheGlobalReality.com. We got to have all your help. We're going to wrap it up, and we'll see you again. Again, this is our fundraising week. We got to reach our operating cost goal by Monday, so we're going to have shows throughout the weekend and updates and whatnot. We'll have updates and other little shows and stuff here, but we just need everybody to go help us reach our goal, okay? All right, folks. We'll see you next time. Take care.